There's an old psychiatric hospital about 30 minutes outside my town. Most people drive past it without ever noticing. Just a massive brick husk buried behind overgrown trees and rusted chain-link fences. The official story is that it was shut down in the early 80s after some scandal involving missing patients and budget fraud. But no one ever talked about it much. It was just there, a landmark you didn't look at too long. Until my friend Tyler decided we should explore it. It was late September, one of those crisp nights where the wind feels sharper than it should. Tyler had just bought a new camera for his urban exploration YouTube channel, and he wanted something with a real dark vibe. I was hesitant, but he convinced me with the usual. We'll be in and out, just some footage for the intro, nothing crazy. We parked just before midnight and hopped the fence with flashlights. The place smelled like mold and rot even before we got near it. The entrance was chained, but Tyler found a broken window around the side. Smashed years ago, probably. We climbed through, careful not to cut ourselves on the jagged glass. Inside was worse. The halls were lined with peeling paint, dangling wires, rusted gurneys. Every step echoed. The air felt wrong. Thick, like something had been left there for decades. Alive. We made our way to what used to be the admissions desk, then deeper into the first floor. I was filming Tyler when we both heard it. A sound. Not a rat, not the wind. A scream. Faint but human, female. It echoed from somewhere below us. We froze. My first instinct was to run, but Tyler whispered, "It could be someone trapped or squatting. We should check." I hated that he was right. We found a staircase at the far end of the corridor, leading down into the basement. There was a sign overhead that said "Restricted, Ward 6. Every step creaked. The air was colder. It didn't feel like we were going underground. It felt like we were going back in time. The basement was worse than the upper floors. Broken lights swung from the ceiling. Metal beds were bolted to the floor. Scratches lined the walls, hundreds of them, some old, some fresh, like fingernails had carved their way through plaster. Then we found a door, heavy, rusted, half open. On it was a plaque that read, "Therapy Room C Seclusion Unit." Inside was pitch black. Tyler stepped in first. His light hit the far wall, and there was writing. Dozens of lines, the same sentence over and over. She never stopped screaming. That's when we heard it again, louder now. A scream. But not just loud. It was right behind us. I spun around, but there was no one there. Just darkness, and an awful metallic smell, like blood and rust and wet concrete. Then the door slammed shut. I screamed Tyler's name and shoved the door, but it wouldn't budge. From inside, I heard him shouting, not words, just panic. The screaming grew louder, higher, like it was coming from the walls. Then silence. Complete. Terrifying. Silence. I don't know how long I stood there pounding on that door. Eventually, it creaked open on its own. The room was empty. No Tyler. Just the camera, but still recording, lying on the ground with a full battery. I called his phone over and over. No signal. I called the police. They searched the building for hours. They found no trace of him. No fresh prints, no body, no clothing. Just old bones in sealed rooms, too old to belong to anyone alive this decade. They told me he must have run off, but I know what I heard. And I know what I saw on the footage before the lens cracked. A shadow, tall, standing behind him in the mirror, with no reflection of me. I never went back. But sometimes, late at night, I hear screaming in my dreams. And I'm not sure if it's Tyler, or if she finally found someone else. There's a man-made lake tucked deep in the northern mountains, far from cell towers, traffic, and people. Tourists visit it in the summer, drawn to the quiet trails and still water. But come autumn, it empties out. Locals know to stay away after that, because of what's under the lake. You see, that lake used to be a town. Back in the 1950s, the government forced an evacuation of a small mining village. They said it was for a reservoir project, promised new homes, clean water, compensation. But when the valley was flooded, most of the town wasn't demolished. It was just left behind. Homes, a diner, a church. And one building they say stayed intact the longest. Crescent Valley Public School. That's the one everyone talks about. People say it's still there. That if the water's low and you know where to look, you might see the roof. And if you dive deep enough, you might find what the school left behind. My friend Eric is a diver, not a thrill seeker, not a YouTuber, just someone obsessed with forgotten places. Sunken towns, flooded tunnels, things that aren't supposed to exist anymore. He'd heard whispers about Crescent Valley's underwater ghost town for years. When I told him I'd grown up nearby, his eyes lit up. "We're going," he said, "this weekend." We arrived just after dawn. It was late October, freezing cold. The lake was flat and silent, blanketed in fog. There were no boats, no birds, not even wind. It felt hollow. Eric suited up, checked his gear twice. 2 underwater cameras, one on his chest, one on his wrist. A radio line, oxygen monitor, and emergency tether all routed back to the boat where I waited, watching the monitor. He entered the water at 6:42 a.m. By 6:58, he found the road. A broken paved strip of old blacktop winding into the murk. We followed it, me on the monitor, him underwater, until something appeared in the gloom. A wall, then a corner, then windows. Brick covered in algae. A rusted metal frame. Above it, faint but visible letters carved into stone. Crescent Valley Public School. "I'm going in," Eric said. I didn't answer. I watched on the feed as he slowly floated down a flooded hallway. Desks lay scattered, papers drifted. Faded murals decorated the walls, hand-drawn stars, multiplication tables, stick figures. He whispered, "It's like the building never let go." Then he paused. "There's a light." The screen flickered. Not from his flashlight. This was different. Warm, yellow, glowing through the crack beneath a closed classroom door. "I'm going in," he repeated. The door creaked as it opened, even underwater. Inside was a classroom, fully intact. Rows of desks bolted to the floor, a globe still spinning slightly. The chalkboard clean, chalk still resting in the tray. In the far corner of the room was a small figure, a girl, back turned, wearing an old-fashioned school uniform. Still, suspended, as if waiting for roll call. "Do you see this?" Eric asked. I leaned into the monitor. Before I could speak, the screen glitched, once, twice, and then went completely black. I called his name over the radio. Nothing. I watched the oxygen timer. Seconds passed, then minutes. Then, the screen came back. Eric was outside the school, panicked, breathing hard through the mic. "She turned," he said. She turned around and she was breathing and underwater. He surfaced 5 minutes later, collapsed into the boat, said almost nothing on the drive home. That night, we reviewed the footage. Everything worked, road, building, hallway. Then the classroom footage cut out. Gone, except for one single still image. A photo of the empty classroom, and on the chalkboard in perfect block letters, "Class dismissed." There's a power plant about an hour outside my city, hidden deep in a stretch of dead industrial road, surrounded by barbed wire and overgrown trees. You wouldn't notice it unless you were looking for it. I wasn't looking for it. I found it by accident while scouting photo spots for a forgotten architecture series. It wasn't on Google Maps. No signs, no keep out tape, Just a rusted gate left slightly open and a cracked access road swallowed by weeds. I should have turned around right there, but I didn't. It was huge. Steel skeletons towering above the trees, smokestacks hollowed out by decades of wind. The outer walls were mostly intact, though cracked and tagged with graffiti, the kind of tags that weren't artistic, just warnings. The front door was chained shut, so I entered through a side maintenance tunnel. It was pitch black, dripping, and smelled like wet metal and mold. I remember how loud my breathing felt, like the walls were listening. After 5 minutes of crawling, I reached a stairwell and emerged into the main floor. And for a second, I forgot to breathe. There were still lights on. Flickering fluorescents dangled from steel beams. A low hum echoed through the building, like something was still running, still alive. In the center of the massive space was the turbine hall, and at the far end of it, a door, perfectly clean, white, unlike anything else in the building. I thought maybe it was a utility closet, or maybe someone had set up camp. It happens in abandoned places, but something about it felt wrong, like it wasn't supposed to be there. I raised my camera to take a photo, but it wouldn't focus. The screen glitched. I lowered the lens and the door opened. No sound, just motion. A dim hallway stretched behind it, but there was no power in the building, none that should have reached that wing. I should have left. I know that now. But I took a step forward, then another. The hallway was lined with thick glass panels, like observation windows. Behind each one, a room, identical. Each room had a chair bolted to the floor, a mirror on the far wall, and a drain. That's when I realized this wasn't a power plant, not entirely. I reached the final room in the row and stopped. There was something inside. A figure, hunched, unmoving, shadowed by the flickering light. I leaned in, trying to make it out, and then the mirror moved. Not the figure, not the light, the mirror. It tilted forward, slowly, and reflected not me, but a different version of the room. In it, I was already inside, standing behind the glass, looking out. I stumbled back. My camera hit the floor. I turned to run, but the hallway was gone. In its place was a staircase I hadn't seen before, rust-covered, wet, leading down. I don't know why I followed it. Maybe I thought it led back to the turbine hall. But with every step, the walls felt narrower. My head hurt. I kept hearing static and whispers I couldn't understand. When I finally reached the bottom, I was in the control room. But it was different now. Everything was running. Screens flickered, gauges twitched, and through the glass wall I could see the turbines spinning. But no one was there. I tried to leave. Every exit I tried led to another room, another hallway, another mirror. I don't know how long I wandered. Time didn't feel real anymore. My watch was frozen at 3:17. The display on my camera showed no data. My photos were gone. Then I turned a corner and found myself back in the maintenance tunnel. Just like that, the exit was 10 feet ahead. I crawled out, ran to my car, drove away without looking back once. When I got home, I checked the footage again. Every file corrupted, except one, a photo of the hallway, empty. But if you zoom in on the first mirror on the left, you'll see me, still inside. If you made it this far, thank you for spending your night with us. If these stories gave you chills, there's plenty more waiting. Don't forget to subscribe to NightFear Stories for new terrifying tales every single night. Sleep well, if you can.